So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for the final installment in the Fix That Home Repair series. We are joined tonight by Mike Barsick from SOUTHFACE. I'm really excited to hear more from him. For those of you that don't know me by now, my name is Jen Tremin, and I am with the Atlanta Beltline Partnership. We are the nonprofit entity for the Atlanta Beltline. The Fix That series is part of our Home Empower series, where we work with partners to deliver informational workshops to help you be more secure in your homes. In addition to the Fix That series, we've done things like how to appeal your property taxes, eviction protections, how to buy a home, and a lot more. Stay tuned for 2021. We'll have a lot of other exciting and informative topics coming. For those of you that haven't joined before, the Fix That series was a partnership between the Atlanta Land Trust, House Proud, and the Atlanta Community Tool Bank to teach you some basic home repairs and skills to save money, just be safer and more secure in your home, since we're all spending much more time in them these days. So like I said, this is the last workshop in the series. I have the other topics that we covered this year on the screen. We have all the recordings on our website, so feel free to take a look at those if you missed any and want to learn more. So that is enough for me. I will turn it over to my friend Adrian with the Atlanta Land Trust to give a quick introduction, and then we will hear from Mike.
Alrighty, perfect. Thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you so much to the partners and everybody here tonight. And I am with the Atlanta Land Trust. We are committed to creating and preserving affordable housing within the city of Atlanta. So for anybody that is interested, we are hosting a virtual community session January 9th at 10 a.m. So I will go ahead and put our information in the chat. And if you guys have any questions about the Atlanta Land Trust, please just contact us and let us know. But thank you so much for being here and having us.
Thank you, Adrian. And I don't think our friends from the Tool Bank and House Proud have joined us tonight, but I will send more information about their organizations out to you guys tomorrow. And Mike, I think you can take over the screen share whenever you're ready. Oh, I'm sorry, one last thing. If you guys have any questions throughout Mike's presentation, please just drop them in the chat and we'll get those read out loud to him so he can answer.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate the chance to be here, if you will. Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Mike Barsick, and I'm a technical principal with SOUTHFACE. We are an environmental nonprofit based here in Atlanta, and we've been around since the late 70s. And our kind of bread and butter environmentalism niche is the built environment. So it's a lot of what we do. We were just talking about, this is a hands-on training facility that we have that we're moving out of because we're able to kind of essentially transfer this training facility back to our main campus, which is near Piedmont and Pine Street, on Pine Street near the Civic Center. The old Civic Center. That's what some of the hands-on training I used to do. I come at the world from the mechanical engineering side of things, but I have built houses and I have renovated houses, and I live in a house. I think that qualifies me right there. So Jen, please feel free to snicker if I make anything funny. Okay, you can unmute yourself and laugh. There you go. So my wife is an architect, and we met building houses and fixing up houses. So we have a lot of connection with Tool Bank and Habitat and all kinds of good efforts. And I've been with the organization now 25 years, and I get to do a lot of our technical training, which is something I really love to do. I thought I'd share also that that's our main campus, which is on Pine Street right there. And we have lots of high performance building technologies and design strategies and all that good stuff. Personally, we live in, this is also a plug. If you would like to go deeper on some of the topics that I might be just brushing on today, we have some free building science webinars that we did about, like kind of Jen, we were talking about earlier. We did these over the summer, and we did a dozen of them, and we had really good turnout. So that was kind of cool. They're all free, and they're roughly an hour, and they dive deeper into some of the topics. So check that out. Lots of good information on our website. Let me see. What I was going to talk about is my own home, and I thought I'd share this. I was thinking about this. I was like, okay, so we bought a 1920 Craftsman bungalow in Decatur, and we moved in just before December of '99. So we've been in our house basically 21 years now. And the first full winter we were in our home, we used 573 therms of gas. Okay, so that's a quantity of gas that we used over, let's call it 7 months, that represented the heating season. And you can see that we started improving it, and it's dropping over time. And then I thought I'd share, these are the last 5 years, I think, yeah. And you can see that we were, well below 200 on average. So that's pretty typical. So we cut our heating consumption by 2/3. And I'm a big walk the talk guy, so I like to practice and experiment on my family and my children and and make sure things work. So if I'm preaching it to you, I like to be able to say I tried it and I did it. This is our electricity consumption. I just put not from the very beginning, but you can kind of see how we did a big. We were doing pretty well. Our utility bills, our electric bills, were about $1,000 for the year. And then about now, almost 4 years ago, we put 15 solar panels on our roof. And so that has dropped our utility bill. Now, our monthly electricity bill is on average about $25. So it's a 1,500 square foot house, 100-year-old home, but we've weatherized it, done a lot of the improvements that we're talking about here. And I just show that to say this really does work. And it's also a lot more comfortable and a lot more healthy. So if you're interested, I did want to also take advantage of this chance to mention COVID safety, which is a building science issue for us. And that's the world that we work in here. So everybody knows wear a mask and wash your hands. In your house, what's kind of interesting is if you share a house with other family members or other household people, houses are almost like super spreader events. If one person gets COVID, there's a greater than 50% chance that other people are going to get it as well. So if somebody in your house is either potentially infected or is known to have this, then there's a couple things you can do. And one thing I wanted to pitch was my friend Bill Warren, who's another building scientist, and he's based out of North Carolina, but he put some kind of homeowner friendly videos together. And the easiest way is just go to YouTube, Bill Warren Building Science. But anyway, a couple things to consider. It's a good time to cause air changes in your home. If your home has a whole house ventilation system, by all means run that. I'm doing that. But every home has exhaust fans. So keep fresh air moving, and particularly in your bathrooms. The COVID virus does not like room temperature, 50% relative humidity conditions. It lives longer if it's drier. And so I normally don't go too crazy on humidifiers. Humidifiers are Band-Aids for leaky houses. If you seal up your house, we're going to talk about, then I think a need for a humidifier is much less. I can say that from our own experience. We used to have to use a room humidifier on our kids when they were little, but since I've sealed up the house a good bit, actually, particularly fixing the crawl space, we don't have to do that anymore. So, but if you need a Band-Aid, I would say a room humidifier is a pretty inexpensive device, and you're trying to keep the relative humidity in the house at about 50%, and that's at room temperature. And in general, being outdoors is safe. Being indoors is the dangerous stuff. So, it's like, avoid buildings. That's easy to say. I appreciate, though, that the virus is spread during aerosol transmission, because of aerosol transmission. So that's why the mask really helps. And it, like anything, it's the dosage and the amount of exposure time. So we really want to kind of minimize that. Go deeper into my colleagues' or my friend's website. But ultimately, the way to think about it, if you've got a person in your family that you think is a potentially infected person or known infection and they've got to quarantine, you want to put them in the room that is at the lowest pressure. And by that, I mean, that's the room that ideally it has a separate bathroom so they can just really quarantine. But that's the one where you want to run an exhaust fan all the time. And you might even consider, he talks about this in his video, putting a fan in the window. And even if you have to slow it down some, keeping that room under lower pressure. So just remember that the pollutant, I think I put this in here, pollutant needs a pathway to the people, and it's pushed by positive pressure. So if you keep the polluted, let's say the pollutant at a lower pressure, it's not going to get to your lungs. That's a big thing on that. So hopefully that makes sense, and we can certainly talk more. A couple other timely things. It both saves energy, but it also is a durability issue. If you insulate cold water pipes, that's to prevent freezing. If you insulate hot water pipes, it prevents them from freezing, and it saves energy. So hot water pipe insulation is pretty DIY friendly. It's not expensive. I recommend that you use zip ties to help make it stay on, because I've found the adhesive on some of those pipe insulations will fail over time. I put zip ties about every 6 inches. Also, here's kind of cool. Y'all have a hose spigot, outdoor hose. You can buy things like this, but you can also make your own. So I don't know if I mentioned, Jen, I'm a professional beer aficionado. So I have plenty of these koozies, and they have a hole in the end, and you can seal that off with anything. I used a wine cork, and you can fit that. That fits really nicely over a spigot. So you can make your own. I have a million of them. If you live in Decatur, I'll give you some.
Hey, Mike, we have a couple questions.
Yeah, please. Good.
So we have one going back to solar panels.
Okay.
And how they hold up in inclement weather.
Well, they don't make any electricity right now when it's dark and it's rainy, but they're incredibly durable. I mean, I've seen things where they're dropping, basically steel balls that are an inch in diameter on them. They're also at a slope. So from a hail standpoint, they're pretty resilient. Panels are unbelievably affordable today. And we could go on and on about that. What I'd like to focus on today is the stuff that's not as sexy, but it has great bang for the buck, which is efficiency on your home. But I'll be happy to stick around and talk as long as Jen will lead me on about solar. I'm a big advocate of it, but I just want to say, do both. Don't put solar panels on a really inefficient home. You can, but it's probably more cost effective to make the home better. Is that fair, Jen?
Sure. And we can come back. There was a follow-up question. We can
be happy to answer that at the end if that's all right. Just let me kind of plow through. So here's a couple easy DIY projects you can do. A couple other things probably everybody knows. You do not want any incandescent or halogen bulbs. It's economically better to take, as soon as we hang up the call here, smash them with a hammer, and well, maybe you should just take them out. Don't use them. Basically, they're so inefficient, it's better for you to actually replace them today or tomorrow, okay? So LED is the way to go. LED, compact fluorescents use about 1/4 of the energy, but that technology is frankly, years old and doesn't need to be implemented anymore. LEDs use 1/6 of the energy, and I'll show you what that means. Also goes without saying, turn off things. This is me channeling my grandmother. Turn off something if you're not in the room and you don't need it. That goes without saying. But here's just an example. This is a light fixture in one of the homes that was, I guess it was like 5 years ago. It was a new home. We were doing a study of a bunch of new homes, and it was 9 60-watt light bulbs. And so when that thing's on, it's sucking 540 watts, and for however long they're on, that's the watt hours. And you divide by 1,000 and you get kilowatt hours. And we pay more than this, but we pay, let's say, 12.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So that ends up being, under that scenario, at 4 hours a day, that's almost $100 to run that light fixture. That's a single light fixture. If those were LED, it would be 1/6 of that, or about $15. So the economics are really, really good. There's nothing we'll describe that really has much of a faster payback than LED lighting. So it's incredible. So my advice is, if you have compact fluorescents, you can wait for those to go if you want to, but I thought I had that on a slide. But basically, get to LED quickly. And if you do have compact fluorescent or anything fluorescent, you want to dispose of them because they do contain mercury. Take them to Lowe's or Home Depot. On appliances, basically just make sure it's got Energy Star on it, and then try to avoid hey, we bought a brand new Energy Star refrigerator, let's put the old inefficient one in the garage. So don't really be cautious of duplicative refrigeration. So I'll say that. We grew up, when I was a kid, we had one refrigerator. And then after my brother and sister and I all, moved out, went to college, left home, then somehow at one point my parents had 5 pieces of refrigeration. I'm like, for 2 people. So it's crazy. Washer dryer, front loader washer is much more efficient. Newer dryers have moisture sensors. Bath fans, generally, the quieter ones are the best. They're more efficient and they're also more desirable. Pay more for a good bath fan. I like Panasonic and Delta, but a lot of like Brown Newton, they have some upper end stuff that's pretty good. I also like to normally put them on a preset timer like you see here that has 10, 20, 40, 60 minutes. So you click it on, it's going to automatically give you adequate runtime. I was having an issue with my kids weren't running the fan long enough, or they'd leave it on all day. So I really like that idea. That's like a $20 switch. If you're comfortable with doing that, that's not a hard retrofit. Kitchen hoods, I want to mention that. Anytime you cook with gas or even with electric, you always want to use a kitchen hood that vents to the outside. The combustion products or even electric cooktops, when the heating element is heating a metal pan, it produces a small pollutant that's not good for your lungs. I want to say it's acrolein, I think I can't ever remember the name of this, but a hood helps to vent that. The back burners draw better than the front burners for hoods. That's what we're learning. Ceiling fans, that's more of a summer thing. Just make sure people are under them when you're using them. If you have a very tall ceiling in your home and you make them blow up slowly, you could almost justify using them in the winter. If you have, but I'm talking like, probably 15 foot or higher. Otherwise, probably don't mess with ceiling fans in the winter. Normally, I'm advocating for closing up the house, obviously, whenever we're trying to space condition, okay? And if the weather's good, yeah, shut everything off and open up the windows. This time of year, this year, I might err on, we'll waste a little energy with additional fresh air. So I'm going to somewhat temper that because we're in a tough year. And then talk about filters. I don't know, Jen, we recommend you change your filter. If you have a cat, Jen, this is probably time to change your filter.
I changed mine this week, thank God.
Good for you. Don't let it look like that. We like to say every Summer Olympics, you should probably change your filter. No, much more so. And let me just say, a 1-inch filter is really there to protect the equipment. It's not going to help your health. There are better quality 1-inch filters, but as filters get dirty, they actually work better. They catch more pollutants, but they also really affect airflow. So it's kind of a tightrope we have to walk. If you want to catch the particles that are really human health, you need something that is a thicker, deeper pleated filter. I'll show you what I mean. So that's an example of one that's probably a 20-inch by 20-inch filter. But if you were to unfold it because of all the pleats, you can see it's much more than 1 inch thick here. It's at 27 square feet. Those kind of filters can last a long time. So even though you pay more for it, you can probably get 6 months to a year out of it. And sometimes you gotta, and I will mention the MERV thing. If you can get to MERV 13 or higher, that will catch virus. That will catch virus particulates. So that's a pretty good filter though. So a lot of times you have to have an HVAC person help modify your ductwork because you can't just slap a very restrictive 1-inch filter in a regular setup. This is one I particularly like. If you have a filter grill is what this is called, and it's a little door that has little latches on it. You can open it. You can put, this is so cool. It's made for a 1-inch filter. This guy, he's a filter guru. He's over I think in Birmingham. He came up with this idea of how to put a 5-inch filter in a 1-inch filter grill. And it's brilliant. And it's got a really good seal around it. So it's probably a $40 filter, but if it lasts a year, worth it. So this is probably what you're talking about, modifying the ductwork and having make sure it's been sealed properly with mastic. And make sure your filter access has a cover that seals. You can make your own out of some good heavy duty plastic and some refrigerator magnets or stronger magnets. Looks like that, or you can buy one for $10, filter lock. Okay. I'm going to skip this and just jump into what can we do for, so one of the biggest things about energy is, of course, heat transfer is a form of energy. And so to try to slow it down, we want to provide good insulation coverage. And these are examples of sort of holes in your insulation coverage. You've all seen I know this is old houses, a whole house fan, but you can imagine that, number one, that's not very airtight even when the louvers are closed. And also that there's an infrared shot. Also, it's not insulated. So we're really trying to kind of go after the sort of plug the leaks, if you will, both from a air leakage standpoint and also from an insulation coverage standpoint, because heat is like me, it always wants to take the path of least resistance. So that's what I'm going to kind of talk about. These are things that matter and really have an impact, but they're they're often not done, even on new construction, although we're doing better. Here we're remove the registers, and I'm going to talk about the duct boots, but remove the registers, seal the boot, that's what this metal part is called, to the drywall or to the floor if it's in the floor. This is too big to caulk, so if we can get it, we can seal it from the attic side, or we might have to use some great stuff, that expanding foam in a can. I jumped to a more advanced DIY project, but a lot of people with attached garages, particularly if there's like a living space above the garage, they're going to have a scenario where in a cutaway, a lot of builders weren't doing this right. Sorry about that. They would block this, or not necessarily block this, but they might put insulation in there. But insulation, like a fiberglass bat, is not an air barrier. So sorry for that. We have a 1940 phone that I forgot to unplug. And then this is one more time. So this is what I'm talking about. So what you could do, if you're curious, is you can cut a hole, and you can put your camera up there and shoot a little video or take a picture and see if you see the presence of blocking or sealing. And if you don't, then you can cut a strip and get access to it and really fix it, and then you'll have to patch it. So maybe cut a 1-foot strip of drywall and then go back and do it. That's a more advanced project, I'll admit. If this is new construction, but this is kind of what I'm talking about, where it's been blocked and sealed like you see in these two. And here's one where it's open, or you may see someone has shoved fiberglass there. We really don't want leakage from a car. Here's the same kind of drawing for new construction. We're trying to, from the house side, the garage is out there. So we're talking about blocking, sealing the blocking in place, and then insulating. That's what you want to have. Other kind of obvious places to go are your attic access. There's a hatch, and there's some good details with a dam around the side so the insulation won't fall in. You see we made a little pizza here out of foam board and some glue and some mastic, and then a bat glued on top. It's almost like a sheet cake. Just use foam board, put some mastic on it like that, put some nails or screws to hold it all, put some weight if you want, and let it dry. And then you can glue a bat to the top of that. There's a nice weight to that. And this is before we've set it. So we weatherized this home with one of our seniors in Decatur in January of this year. And before we did anything in the attic, we air sealed and did all the prep. So I'm going to emphasize that. Then we blew insulation. This is the dam I was talking about. We also did a raised, elevated kind of catwalk to get through it, which you see on this side. And then this is the weather stripping, and the trim around here with the weather stripping is going to receive the cover, and it seals nice and tight. So now no longer do you have this often leaky, often very poorly insulated sort of hole in your insulation. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have pull down stairs, you can buy or build cover kits. Some of them go from the attic side. This is kind of cool. It's like a door that covers from the underside. It looks nice. You can clearly see it's foam board. So this is what we're trying to essentially address, the fact that the R value, or the resistance to heat flow of wood, just a 1/4 inch of wood, is pretty poor. So we're trying to get some insulation on there. You can build a cover box like this out of 1 4x8 sheet of foam board. You can lay it all out and cut it. I like to cut foam board on a table saw or on a circular saw if you're that level of skill, or even a hand saw. It actually cuts better than with a utility knife. A utility knife, it's hard to make it go straight. if you use glue or mastic, beware that not all glue is made for foam board. I use duct sealing mastic to fix everything. And you can see we glued a bat to the top. So it'll sit on top, and the weight of the bat in the box it's resting on this 1x4 frame of the stairs. So you have to measure it carefully because the stairs have to fit up inside of it. But then when you go up in the attic, you lift it out of the way. This makes a huge difference in both the summer and the winter. Or also, if you buy a new pull down stairs, try to get one that has foam board in the door itself and good weather stripping. Okay, you can buy zipper tents. They typically don't have much insulation. They do help air seal. This is one brand, I don't know who makes it, that has a little pocket that you can actually put insulation in the pocket. So these are all ways to fix that. Whole house fan, you can build a cover that you either do a cover from the top side or from the house side. If you're not going to ever use the whole house fan, you could take the fan out and insulate it. But this is one of the bigger ones we'd ever seen. So we normally just do one bolt in the middle and a fender washer and a wing nut. This one was so big, we actually had to use 3. It was massive, but it works. Also, this is some pictures of talking about this catwalk. This is one, this is an attic. This is one that we did in my attic because I was putting this shiny stuff up. It's called radiant barrier. That's something you can do yourself, but it's going to keep your attic cooler in the summer. But anyway, I was building this catwalk and insulated it and then decked it with some boards. So now I can get to the other end of my attic without disturbing the addition. I've blown more insulation around this, but this is during this. And that's our water heater on the other side. So I wanted to get access to it. Okay. While I was up there, we noticed that the insulation was kind of weak in one point. And so this is after I've messed with it. It just looked a little suspicious. So I kind of looked. Most of my house has 10-foot ceilings. This was 8-foot ceiling. And so we started looking at it and it was like, oh, wow, they left a giant hole. So this is a 2-square-foot hole at the 10-foot level. And then down here is 2 feet lower is the 8-foot level. And so there's a hole in my air barrier, which has to work in conjunction with my insulation coverage. So I just thought I'd share some pictures. Duct mastic, which is just great. You can use caulk if you want, but anyway, I put mastic all around, squish a piece of foam board in it. Sometimes I'll put screws in that, but mastic that's what it looks like. I put some insulation in it. I covered it with more insulation. You never know it's there. It's a little more picture. Anyway, then I found another one. And this was the same thing. There was a can light in the 8-foot ceiling and started pulling the insulation back to see it. And that's kind of what our kitchen looks like. So I think I was in this can light right here. And I was like, I wonder if any of these others have a problem. So I did that trick with your phone, from the attic side, stick your phone in it and take some pictures or run your video. And that's what I shot. And you can see, okay, these can lights are okay, but that looks suspicious right there. That looks suspicious. So sure enough, there was a vent stack coming up they had never bothered to seal. So this is just shoddy workmanship from probably, 30 years ago, who knows? Anyway, that was the fix afterwards. So we were all happy. This is our radiant barrier project that I was telling Jen, I started this about 17, 18 years ago, and my daughter helped me finish it this year. So before she was born, that's it. I'm sorry about the phone going off. Other things you can do, if you're going to get in your attic and you want to add insulation, before you add insulation, you always want to do the air sealing prep. I am so sorry about that. And that means we're going to caulk it or seal it at the top plates. And a lot of times there's wires poking through here too, or plumbing, and that's where we want to air seal. So same picture. We also say generally in most houses, the flat ceiling is your insulation and air barrier. That's accessible, and that's where you focus your effort. So we say seal the lid, insulate the lid. And don't insulate first. You want to seal first and then add more insulation. There's an example of a large hole, chase. And so we're going to cap chases. This is one that had a fireplace in it, a chimney. You could see you could see the interior walls. So we used wood in this case. You could use foam board. You do want to transition with sheet metal up against any surface that could get hot. That's kind of the code. So we stay 3 inches away with wood or foam or whatever. But we'll use fire-rated caulk and seal that there. We'll also wrap it's a little hard to see. There's a dam, so the insulation is sheet metal, just inexpensive roll flashing material, so that blown insulation does not actually touch the chimney. Between you and me, it wouldn't do anything, but we're going to follow code and be safe. Here's another one, examples of stuff you want to find. And if you ever see dirty insulation in your attic, that usually means air has been leaking through it. So that's what we're going to do. I'll show you fixes on that in a second. Cap and seal chases, again, older houses have all kinds of unknowns. There's a huge one right here, and there's the fix of it. So, but newer homes have problems like this too, where they sort of sealed it, but they didn't. So, and again, if this is a flue pipe, then we're going to want to use, they make fire rated caulk that you can seal that with. Just the part that's right up against the flue. Plumbing tends to be, if you've got a crawl space or an unconditioned basement, plumbing is plumbers make the most holes. So we foam this, and we put a big piece of foam board around this, and then we, run a bead of caulk, squish the board into it, and then foam it with a can of great stuff like you see there. Here's a fix from an attic side. I wanted to show that. Going fast. Last big project is ductwork. So leaky ducts are the biggest waste of energy in existing homes, and it's because ducts are under pressure, and also ducts operate at the worst possible times, meaning the coldest night and the hottest days. So there's lots of things that you're allowed to seal ducts with, but the only one that you should use is MASTIC. They do make a MASTIC tape. It's really expensive. It's much better to use tub MASTIC. I recommend you buy it. It's cheaper if you buy it at an HVAC supply house. You can go in, I just give them cash. They can sell you MASTIC. They can't sell you a furnace, but they can sell you MASTIC. Here's examples of how it should have been done and when it wasn't done. And you can actually seal MASTIC on the inside of the ducts or on the outside of the ducts. So that's all good examples. And usually the connections are where we care about. So you can use a paintbrush like in this example. I generally recommend get a latex glove, wear old clothes, and just goop the stuff. It's water-based. Reach in there and start gooping it on. And you just have to seal where the flex duct connects or where the seams of metal ducts are. You don't have to coat all the metal. You just need to seal wherever there's a joint. So this is the boot I was talking about. And you can seal it from the attic side here, including the flex connection, or you can do it from inside the house. You reach up, work your way out. Again, we want to see it on the seams, not on the outside of the insulation. That's it. So in general, in existing homes, I always say, okay, first do a quick check, make sure nothing is completely disconnected or about to be disconnected like this. And then pull the registers off, get in there with a shop vac if you can and try to clean them out, and then seal the boot. Like I said, reach in and work your way out, and then make sure you seal it to the floor. So here's some pictures. There's some wall registers. Here she's reaching way down inside and working her way out with MASTIC. And here is another one where it's been sealed to from the inside, and then we'll seal this to the floor. And then more pictures kind of showing the same thing. So lots and lots of pictures of all. It's messy, but it's fun, and just wear old clothes. And then my last one is, if anybody has a home or something where you have a window unit air conditioner, you want to make sure that you cover that if you leave it in year round. Some people leave it in year round. If you do, I recommend you put some foam board on the sides, and you can cover it with white tape to make it look good. And make sure this gap at the top has been sealed. I use pipe insulation for that. And I think that is my big issue. Also, I was going to say, somewhere on our website is under resources library, there's assessment. It's a very ugly document. I'll be the first to admit it. It doesn't have any pictures, but it does list things, if you're going to take on some of these projects, things you should be aware of. So it's kind of like everything I could think of, I kind of wrote it down, and it's in an ugly Word file. It's not a typical pretty SouthFace document, but that was hopefully of use. So that is it. I went really fast, and I hope I get some questions. I was trying so hard to finish on time. So
you did great. We do
on time, on budget, Jen. Okay.
That's all our bosses care about.
Stupid phone. Yeah, go ahead. Any questions?
Yes, so I'm going to start with one that I find very important because of my job, but can you share more about some weatherproofing programs for seniors?
Weatherization programs for seniors. Well, there is traditionally always what's called low-income weatherization funding. So, and I don't know all the details for that. I know I do a lot of the technical training for that, and that there are typically there's about 20 weatherization agencies throughout the state of Georgia that are often funded through various means, and sometimes um, it's there's not a lot. Some states in the country have much better funding for weatherization programs. Georgia, the South, unfortunately doesn't have a huge amount, but I would check into that. That tends to be for low income. I'm not sure what the definition is.
Sure.
In Decatur, we do a program on MLK weekend, and it's volunteering, and we've been doing it for I think 18 years, and it was just the one day, and then it became the weekend, and then we've had, I don't know, 1,200 volunteers this January. We're not going to do it this year, sadly, because we don't want to have people in seniors' homes. That's with a pandemic, that's just not a safe thing. So we may do some outside stuff. So if you're in Decatur City, you should certainly sign up for that. And that is a great opportunity. And I'm sorry it's not going to happen this year. We're going to do some sort of unofficial projects. But I really don't know, Jen. I'm sorry, I'm more the technical than the program person, but I know they exist. And
Sure.
I think Resource Conservation Ministries, there's several different ones that do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I also knew that it was limited in the state of Georgia. Our friends at House Proud do home repairs for seniors and do sometimes provide heaters with heater safety and things like that. So I'll be sending more information about their organization out tomorrow.
I will say, if I could just jump on, I will say, sorry if I cut you off, that I know if you want to hire a professional to come and do an energy assessment on your home, I recommend you go to get someone that's an Earthcraft technical advisor, because they've been through a lot of training, and likely a lot of it through us. And that is earthcraft.org. And those technical advisors, they administer the Earthcraft program, and that's more, but they have the wherewithal to do assessments, and some of them can also do, sometimes they do home performance contracting as well. And then Georgia Power at least used to have a list of, they've kind of cut the funding on this too. They're notorious for getting everybody excited and getting people committed, and then pulling the rug out. So I don't know what the status of it, but they had a home energy improvement program which offered rebates even, which is also very attractive to help people pull the trigger on some of this. And this is where you're hiring a contractor to do some of the work. So check their website. They probably still have a list of approved contractors.
Yeah, I know that they still do rebates for some water conservation pieces, but I'm not sure about the energy.
And rebates come and go. I mean, or incentives come and go. So it's always a moving target. Yeah.
Sure. So I'm gonna read this question verbatim so I don't misconstrue the question.
Well, I can also open the chat.
Sure, no, I'm happy to read it.
You read it though. You read it.
Sure. So do you recommend wrapping water heaters? He had looked at his water heater and has parts attached to it that don't make the wrapping easy. Do you have any tips for getting around it without sacrificing the insulation benefit?
That is an excellent question. So first of all, if you were to wrap an insulating blanket around your water heater, it's not going to hurt anything. So even if you do a halfway job, there's no harm. The only thing that you could kind of screw up is if it is a gas water heater, there's a thing at the top called the draft diverter where the flue comes off, and you keep the insulation generally off the top of a gas water heater. If it's an all electric water heater, you can insulate the entire thing. However, in the year 2015, basically all water heaters got significantly more efficient. And generally, to hit the new efficiency targets, they basically went to more insulation and a couple other things. But so if your water heater is 2015 or newer, I would say it's probably not worth doing. If it's a gas water heater, even if it's older than 2015, because gas is relatively inefficient. There's nothing wrong with doing it, but it's not going to save an appreciable amount. I would say pipe insulation is a better project for saving money. No harm if you do it. If it's all electric and it's older than 2015, I would say it's probably worth it. So hopefully that gives you some guidance there. So newer water heaters, just inherently, they have much more insulation on them than the older ones did.
Great. So we're going to go to more of a summer question now. So this home has a very high humidity level, and in the summer it's gone to over 70% or more.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a bad thing? Do you have any suggestions for them?
Well, so what is magic about 70% relative humidity is that's kind of the switch for mold to grow. And so the sweet spot, the target for indoor relative humidity is right around 50%. And I have slides on this in other trainings. If you really want to learn more, do one of the ventilation and indoor air quality webinars that's talking about up here. But basically, you can drift a little bit, but if you get, somewhere above, I don't know, 55% relative humidity, the little dust mite population starts to accelerate. So there's arguments to stay, and let's just say if you keep it, if I want a broader band, I'll say between 40 and 60% relative humidity. At 60%, some molds can grow, but most of them don't really take the stuff that eats buildings and living and that we think of is typically 70% RH. So if you're like us and you open your windows a lot, and we did a lot this summer, it was very humid this summer. We had really high humidity. It was just a very humid summer. And so, full disclosure, we actually had a little bit of surface mildew growing behind a piece of furniture. And why does it grow there? Because mildew is a form of mold, and it wasn't bad, but I noticed it growing, and it's like, because it's dark, there's not a lot of airflow back there. So there's a good chance that you're going to have something like that. If your relative humidity, it only takes about 24 to 48 hours for mold to start to grow. A small spike and then you're back down, probably not much of a big risk. But, generally if you get too dry, and that's what happens in the winter, we often get very cold air, and cold air is inherently dry air. That's why you might need a humidifier. One of the best things you can do is to air seal your house. If you do some of the air sealing I was talking about, what happens is you're not letting as much cold, dry air in, and that's what dries out your house. And that absolutely was going on in our house. Our crawl space was vented. It let a lot of cold air in. It had to, because it was an old, inefficient furnace. That cold air would leak up through the floor and through all the other plumbing pipes. And then once we sealed it up, and I turned my crawl space into an insulated basement, basically. I didn't dig it out. I'm just saying it's a short basement. I upgraded the furnace. There's a whole webinar on that topic. But that was a huge that was the biggest jump that we could see in terms of comfort, in terms of controlling indoor humidity, was fixing the crawl space. So a very big project, but a big payoff too. So in the summer, if you air seal your house, you're not letting as much humidity in. So air sealing actually benefits you. Having said that, we live in the South. You're going to need some drying. Drying is best accomplished by a dehumidification cycle, which is possibly your air conditioner, but frankly, the best thing to dry houses is a dehumidifier. So there are strategies there. The other thing is one of our webinars is all about moisture. And so maybe watch that. It's an hour long, but it talks about how drainage is a huge problem on so many houses in Atlanta, that every mold call I ever got called out to investigate, I always wanted it to be some complicated thing. It was always due to drainage. So I'm just going to say that. I should probably put drainage pictures in this presentation. So I hope that kind of helps. In general, we would like it to be around 50% indoor relative humidity. And if you get above 70, that could be a problem in terms of growing stuff. And the longer it is, and some people are more sensitive to mold than others. I have allergies to mold, so I'm sensitive to it. Breathing crawl space air was bad. So.
I imagine. So I will get this link out to your webinars
Yeah.
and our follow-up email because it sounds very helpful. So we have, I'm going to say probably the last question because we are at 6:45 and it is.
And I can see it. I'll answer it, and then I'm going to just make a really quick, try a 2-minute overview about solar, if that's okay. Is that all right, Jen?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. So first of all, MASTIC is probably your best bet for when the insulation is torn. That's fine. You can just use silver tape and tape the insulation. That's fine. The insulation is not the pressure barrier. The pressure barrier is usually inside of the insulation. It's either the flex duct, the liner, or it's the metal of the metal duct. You can put mastic from the inside or from the outer side, but you'll have to move the insulation to get access to it. I would say focus on the connections like the collars. That's where you went from like a square plenum to a round duct or things like that. And of course, the boots are really easy to get. You can do that from the house side. My advice is get a tub of mastic. It's probably 15, 20 bucks at a HVAC supply house. Buy 2, buy 3. You can fix anything with it. It's really good to have. And use as much as you can. Go crazy with it. And yeah, so some people will tape things together and then coat the tape with mastic. That's also okay. So other stuff was about solar. Solar panels hold up really well. Generally, they would say probably if your roof is in older condition, at least re-roof that section before you put new panels on. Our roof was in pretty good shape. We had put a new roof on not that long before. So we didn't have to worry about it. I did do some structural bracing. I wanted to, I did not have to. Our rafters are 24-inch on center 2x4s, 1920. And the indicator's like, yep, no problem. So it's really, solar panels are not so much of a dead load. It's more of a wind uplift issue. I put some kickers underneath for structure. I didn't have to, I just wanted to. So structurally, very little weight load on that. Atlanta is blessed. We have some very good solar installers, and my advice is to get a bid and ask for quotes. And also, if there's ever a promotion like Solarize was a great way to kind of crowdsource and get that. That's what we did 4 years ago, and now they just wrapped it up for Decatur, DeKalb, and Atlanta. I think it ended in September, but we'll probably do it again. We'll probably try to push that out again. That's a great opportunity. You can also, people ask me who did mine. Creative Solar did mine. I've tried to be very transparent with what my costs were. After the tax credit, it came in to be about $1.90 a watt, and I have a 4,000 watt system. That's 15 panels. Today, the panels are even better, and cheaper. So that was 4 years ago. But I would say don't wait. I mean, pull the trigger on solar because it's worth it. And we've been saving money every year since then. So I've got 4 years of savings, from doing this. I'm saving between $550 and $700 a year off my original $1,000 a year utility bill. So that ain't bad. I'm down to 25 bucks a month. And the more you put on, the better. Battery storage is a great option, but batteries are more expensive right now. Or their technology keeps coming down. But the nice thing batteries give you is when the power goes out, you can have that as a backup. But honestly, I'm not there economically for me, but I have friends that had it, and when their power went out for a week because of, was it a hurricane I can't remember. What else happened this year, Jen? So they had backup. They had power and all their circuits were on. Whatever that was, I can't even remember that took out.
I think it was a hurricane.
Yeah. What else happened? So let's see. Creative Solar in Kennesaw is the one that installed my system. But like I said, we have a number of really good installers. Go to gasolar.org. You can put that in the chat if you want. So anyway, my costs were after tax credit were $1.90. And it was $7,500 basically. And I'm tracking about a 12-year payback. If all I cared about was payback, I would put a smaller array on, but our house is already so efficient. So most people's, the size array we put on, I would say put more. That's what's great. You can put as much as your budget affords or you want to spend. I paid cash, but it's worth it to borrow the money and pay. You'd have instant savings if you borrowed the money. All right, what was the next? I think we had one more comment, or yeah. So yeah, mold is bad.
Yeah. So
I thank you so much for having me, Jen. I'll stick around if anybody has any questions or anything else, but we can chop at it whenever you're ready. So.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time and your expertise. You may have convinced me to maybe do a solar or other sustainability workshop in 2021. Cool. So we'll see. But just thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and for those that joined us throughout the whole series. We look forward to seeing you in 2021 with more workshops. And other than that, have a safe and relaxing and great holiday season.
And my email is down there, so feel free to reach out. I don't know how much I'm checking it over the next couple of weeks, but feel free to email me if you have any questions. So, and Jen, I'll make sure if you want them, I'll share the slides with you and as a PDF, and you can post. I don't know if y'all are posting slides or not, but
oh yeah, I would be happy to do that, and we'll share this in our follow-up email tomorrow too.
Sounds great. Thanks everybody. It's time for eggnog.